your big goals take time. You have to go through that time, right? You know how it is when you're studying, you go back home, you meet your friend, you still study, you're not tired of studying. If that's a part of what you need to do, you have to do it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Captain 501 broadcast. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's another guest episode, so of course I'm being joined by another incredible Belizean guest. So to give you guys a bit of an introduction, this physicist, mathematician, and data scientist has been an accomplished researcher and professor with a PhD and an MBE, and he has represented Belize at different places across the world like the UN and the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, Austria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Captain 501 broadcast, none other than Dr. Aaron Paul Lewis.
Aye, Captain.
Thank
That was
you.
a very, very handsome introduction,
Yeah.
if I should say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you for making your way onto the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm glad to be in your world, right? It's my first, so
Thank
you
you.
have the distinction of saying that, you know, I was the first.
That's
My
right.
first experience was on your podcast, right?
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So, from the introduction, you're a well accomplished, well educated individual, but I want to take it back to the beginning. Tell us, because of course you didn't start off this way.
hmm
Tell us, how did you begin your educational career?
Um, well, of course, everything started in Griga, right?
Mhm.
I mean, heart and soul to the bone. um, I I did primary school, Holy Ghost primary school in Dangriga. After, which I attended ecumenical high school. And, in those days, for you to venture on to sixth form, you had to leave Dangriga because there were still only two junior colleges in the country. And so I left um, Dangriga in 1985, and that was it. The journey continued on until it ended up into a PhD in physics,
Nice,
right?
nice, yeah.
Quite a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then what was it about physics and math specifically? What was it about those two subjects that draw you towards it?
Yeah, so growing up, there was a dyslexic side of me, right? A lot of people don't really know that. Um, Eventually, I started to figure out that I was really good at mathematics. I remember my grandmother used to have some bags of books under her bed. I don't know where she got them from. There were a lot of biology books, botanical books, um, but there were two books in particular that caught my attention, and they were algebra books, right? And in my moments of struggles, I found myself going through those books, and I start reading them, and I'm figuring things out because I would check the answer behind the book and the answer is correct, right? It was later on that I realized that I was teaching myself algebra, right? The physics part came in because I always wanted to know how things work, right? And I remember my mother had this before there were cassette players, you had this thing called 8-track. So my mother had an 8-track player, and I wanted to know how this thing worked. So I opened it. The problem was that I didn't put it back together the way it was before. So I guess that was my the beginnings of my interest, I suppose, in science, right? Um, but the other side of it, I always tell people who I know that the first scientist that I knew was my grandmother, right? Because I used to watch, for example, she would knead her bread and her bun um, just before the sun goes over to the other side, just before evening would begin. And then she would put it outside and cover it. And I always wondered what was going on, right? Not knowing that she was, using sunlight to help her yeast to activate and all of that good stuff, right? Besides the fact that she was a, very good winemaker, right? We leave that at that.
That's yeah. Well, yeah. That's an interesting story, because then I think that a lot of our Belizean people may not even realize that they're physicians in their own right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah.
had briefly talked about leaving home to further your education. What was that like, leaving Griga and having to come to Belize City to further your academics?
Yeah, that was very interesting because, as you know, um, I'm an only child like you are,
Mhm.
and except that it's interesting in the Belizean context, right? Particularly at that time, if you lived in any district outside of um, Belize district or Belize City, for that matter, it was a natural process for you to prepare your mind that after high school, if I want to go further, I have to leave home, right? Um, the issue obviously was moving to another city in this case, being away from home, having to adjust to a new house, a new household, um, and we heard horror stories in the past, um, and so those were the concerns. But I think those of us that had the opportunity to go to Belize City for sixth form, I think we accepted that challenge because trust me, it was very challenging. It wasn't easy at all,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
But you made it work.
yeah. Well, we had to,
Mhm.
right? Because the interesting thing about it is that when you leave home in that context, you leave behind what I now call fans,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
they have expectations of
Right.
you, right? That's besides those that say, "Oh, you don't need to continue go study. You need to go up on the farm, go work, or
Yeah.
whatever, whatever." um, I always knew that I wanted to get a further education. That's how I used to describe it to myself. I didn't really know what it was or what it meant, right? I just knew that I wanted to get a further education, right? So I ended up at Belize Technical College, um, which at the time was known for science, according to me. Right, and so that's where my I would say my hardcore science and mathematics experience began, with uh, the different courses in physics, and I got introduced to calculus, which was a game changer in my mind, and things start to evolve from that because I started to see things um, differently, right? And in those days, ecumenical high school was no joke, right? I mean, we were prepared very well in all aspects, right? With the math, the science, the religion, English, history in particular. I took history under Mr. Humphreys, and by the time you finish a course with him, you really know who you are. right?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly as a black person, a Garifuna person, a Belizean, somebody with African roots. Yeah, so it was that kind of preparedness, I think, that I went to Belize Technical College.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So you had the shift from moving from Griga to Belize City, but then after finishing from technical high school, then now you had that big jump of moving out of the country.
Yeah,
So what was that like?
yeah, that was a huge jump, right? I remember I heard about the USAID scholarship last minute. Actually, when I heard about it, it was the day that it was the deadline to submit, right?
Hmm.
And I managed to submit my application on time, um, and I went through the interview process. Um, it was an interesting interview process because I told them I wanted to do physics and math, and and one of the U.S. Embassy staff at the time, for some reason, it was an issue to her that I was an only child. It was quite weird. Um, but it was interesting at that time. I knew exactly what I wanted. That my direction would have been, physics and math, and so, I tried to defend that as best as I could, and I got the scholarship. Um, the thing about it is that my mother didn't know that I had applied for the scholarship,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it was after I got the scholarship, I went to my mom and say, I have this scholarship, it's to the US. And but I was fortunate that anything that came about that deals with education, I knew she was going to be supportive, right? What I didn't know was whether or not she was prepared to let me go, because
Right.
it wasn't a simple thing of me leaving Dangriga to go to Belize City. Because my first year in Belize City wasn't an easy one, right? And my last year I ended up staying with family members. It wasn't the most conducive situation per se, but I was totally loved there, taken care of, and what have you, right? So the other things, there were minor matters, right? Those are things my mom found out on graduation day, and that was a minor thing for me as far as I'm concerned. I was in a situation where I knew that people genuinely cared about my welfare, right? And so yeah, she was willing to let me go all the way to South Carolina.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? This was in 1987, right? 1987. Little bit of boy thinking a man.
And so now, what is it like as a Dangriga youth now stepping into this whole new world of South Carolina?
Yeah, it was more than just a Dangriga youth. It was more like a Belize youth, a Central American youth. Um, it, you know, people in the U.S. use this term third world. It's not a term that I use. I grew up on. Um, I've never ever woken up in the morning feeling third worldish, right? And so it was interesting because as far as I was concerned, every time I took a test when I was doing undergraduate, I felt like I was at war for Belize, on behalf of Belize, right? given the initial challenges that I had. Um, I made up my mind that, them I remember this Lee boy, right? Because I remember my first week, people would say, "Oh, you have an accent." I said, "You have an accent too."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would ask me, so, do you have like tigers walking around in your backyard? And right? And then after a while, I realized that they had no idea where um, Belize is. And so I started telling them, I'm from Central America, um, and what have you. But I mean, listen, when I went to technical, I was one of probably four students. We were doing triple majors, right? Two of us, we were doing mathematics, chemistry, and physics. So by the time I got to South Carolina, um, in those 2 years of technical, I had, some serious amount of credit hours,
Yeah.
right? And that was the first time that I realized concretely, without a doubt, that that the education foundation that I got in Belize was solid, right? It was world class because I could have seen from the beginning that I could compete with the Americans, the Indians, the Chinese, right? Because, initially, listen, I was young, right? So I wasn't sure, right? Um, until, that first class landed, right? As a matter of fact, I remembered, so I had done calculus 1 and calculus 2 at technical, and there was a reluctance to have me signed up for calculus 3, right? So I went and signed up for calculus 3 on my own, right? And of course, I had to make sure that I pass it, right? And yeah, that's when I started to get a deep understanding that the foundation from Belize was solid, right? Um, yeah, I had excellent teachers, really, all the way from primary school, at Holy Ghost High School, at Ecumenical and Belize Technical College. Um, I was prepared. I could honestly say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was prepared.
Yeah. So I know that, like, as a student, you have this confidence of knowing that you have the educational background to be able to hold your own with the different other students in your class, and what have you. But I'm sure that that also came with some challenges, being in a different country aside from your own. So what was that like?
Yeah, so that was
Mhm.
interesting, right?
Mhm.
First, you have the aspect of the culture shock.
Mhm.
Um, in my case, I did a fair bit of traveling with my mother, right? Whether it be to Guatemala or to 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 Mexico, um, even to the U.S., right? I traveled with my mother from Belize to the U.S. by bus,
Hmm. Mhm.
right? Um, so for me, America was a place for me to further my studies, right? It wasn't a thing where I wish I could go live the States
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? So it was a place for me to fulfill my dreams, right? Um, so there's the aspect of culture shock. I mean, I remember the first day I was on campus, and I saw these vehicles passing with these funny letters, and people have these funny letters on their
Mhm.
on their on their on their clothing, and
Mhm.
then they're making certain songs, and I'm like, am I at a devil worship place or something?
Mhm.
Of course, I didn't know anything about Greek life, right?
Mhm.
You know, that it's a part of their culture as well. Um, you know, in those days, fries, we still call fries chips,
Mhm.
potato chips,
Mhm.
right? So, so I remember when I went to there was this chicken joint, Bojangles, right? And I remember when I went there for the first time to buy food, and so I ordered the lady asked, Do you want chicken and biscuit?" I said, "All right, I'll have chicken and biscuit, but I want some fries as well." Right? So the food came, the chicken, the fries, and so I'm there standing, right? And so she said, "Can I help you?" I said, I'm waiting for my biscuit."
Mhm.
Right? So, you know, it's the American biscuit.
Mhm.
I was waiting for something
Mhm.
sweet.
Yeah.
That would have been my dessert because I
Mhm.
said, "Oh no, that's a roll."
Mhm.
But anyway, right? So it was a adjustment, right? Um, and this was around the time of Reagan as well. There was a bit of, anti-foreigner sentiment, sort of like similar to what's going on here, but maybe not as bad, or maybe I was too young to really understand the intricacies. Um, so you had those nuances, right? And then there was this aspect of, light skin versus black skin that I was never exposed to before. There was an incident in particular though, because my good friend Jeff. So Jeff lived in Colorado, right? His parents went to South Carolina State, which is a university we were attending. And so traditionally, their kids go to the same school. So Jeff would drive from Colorado to
Mhm.
South Carolina for school,
Mhm.
right? And Jeff had gotten his new car, a red Honda CRX. And I remember one evening we were driving through a town, and as we rolled into that town,
Mhm.
the police there
Mhm.
swarmed us. Right? It was an interesting experience for me because prior to that, being in Belize,
Mhm.
you would watch CNN and people would talk about, man, I got arrested because, I'm in a nice car,
Right.
I'm black.
Mhm.
And then I used to wonder, nah, man, that sounds funny
Mhm.
until it happened to you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that was the first time ever in my life, I'm pull out of a vehicle, spread eagle, rub down,
Hmm.
right? So it was an awakening, a reality check, if you will. But it was a reminder to me that I have to be aware of my new surroundings so that I could learn how to navigate it
Mhm.
to my benefit,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And that was a growing experience,
Mhm.
right? And maybe maybe because of those experiences, I'm not easily intimidated today, right? I
Mhm.
know how to defend myself clearly, right?
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. And then it's like you said too, like you have to push through because
yeah,
not only are you now faced with a new challenge, but like you said too, you also have the people back home who are expecting you to make it through. And you did because then now you did something that many people haven't heard of, but you went straight from a bachelor's to a PhD.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So so um, my first day at South Carolina State, I got there a week early. They had already given up my dorm, right? I got there a week early,
Mm-hmm.
so they had me temporarily in a room next to the bathroom, right? So I'm supposed to now go to the math department to go and register. right? So I went with my credentials from technical, maths, chemistry, physics, and the guy. Now, mind you, when I got the USAID scholarship, I explicitly told them, please send me to a predominantly black university. Because in my mind, I was going to be sheltered,
Yeah.
from racism and what have you, right? So I remember this guy who was supposed to advise me, whatever. I gave him my transcript. He looked at me, look at my transcript. He looked at me, look at my transcript. He said, I think you should study chemistry because you have a lot of chemistry courses. So I said, I'm on a scholarship. I'm here to study physics and math, and I have to finish in 2 years. Say, and he took my transcript and he threw it at me, right? And he said, I don't think somebody like you is ready to do physics and mathematics as a double major.
And when they say somebody like you, they mean a foreigner.
Yeah, because he had already told me that, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? Right? I didn't know how to react because that was the first time in my life I'm experiencing that type of, prejudice.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you're supposed to call it discrimination because he was darker than I am, right? And I was shocked, right? I went to my room and I sit down and I cry. Now you have to remember now, this was in those days, we didn't have a phone at home. As a matter of fact, my mom was on this waiting list for 2 years for a phone from BTL, right? So, to call home, I have to call the neighbor, right? The neighbor has a phone because Mr. Joseph was once a former mayor, right? I called, well, I have to put together my $15 worth of shillings, right? To feed the machine to make a 3 minutes call. Call my mom, say, I gotta return home. I mean, these people are treating me bad. My mom says, son, you're on a mission. Remember, you're on a mission, right? And give me that motherly pep talk, right? She said, go back to your room, sit down, say a little prayer. When you feel good, you get up and you go to physics, right? Yeah. I got up, I went to physics, and I met the best people ever, right? They say, oh, come on, we don't always get people who do double major, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about math. We will sign up your courses for you, whatever, whatever. So that was an excellent start. That was what I needed, right? Unfortunately, as usual, at that level, the physics program is small, right? We used to go to class, and there would be 6 of us around the same table. 2 of us were in physics. The other physics guy, he was a semester beyond me. Very, very smart guy. And then the other 4, they were engineering majors. And so this is during the first semester. I remember we went to class. The other physics major, his name was Keith. We went to class was over. We partied, Keith gave a joke, everybody laughed. We went to our dorm, and now we're waiting to link up when we go to dinner, right? And probably like 30 minutes later, I got this call, one of my friends calling me, asking, did you hear about Keith? I said, we just had class. He said, man, Keith is dead. I was like, what? Yeah, committed suicide on campus. Right? That was the first time I ever knew anybody who, got to that point. And what was interesting was that the following day, we went to class. We sat around the same table. That spot is missing. Nobody's there. We know why. The teacher came in and started teaching. I was like, what? this is different. This is very different. After that semester, I'm not sure what happened to the engineering guys, but I remained the only physics major for a year and a half, right? So I used to get personalized teaching, right? As I go from semester to semester, I have my courses. I sit with my professors. We make arrangement. They would say, okay, come in on Monday, I will teach you. And then you have these problem sets, you do them, make sure you bring them on Friday. We have discussions, right? It was a rich experience. It was a lot of work, right? But in those days, my trick was the fact that I knew mathematics. I had a strong mathematics background. So for me, physics was where I went and applied my mathematics. I didn't understand the intricacies of the physics concept in the way that I do now at that time. But once you present me with a problem and I'm able to set up my formulas and my constraint, then in my mind, that became a mathematics idea, right? And I roll up my sleeve and it's time to jam. So I mean, a bad situation really end up being a fortunate situation for me, right? So at the end of my last semester, I was invited to go and visit now University of South Carolina, which is a much bigger school, right? And they gave me a tour, and at the end of the tour, we went back to the dean's office, and the dean said, I'm considering a scholarship for you. Now, mind you, I'm supposed to leave the following day to return back home. I already had my job, connection set up at Ecumenical, and I said, whoa. I said, well, if you're going to do that, you have to give me my paperwork by tomorrow, right? And I said, no problem. And yeah, so I was presented with a teaching assistantship to enter the PhD program from a bachelor's program, right? Because, I had, very good grades. It was risky in the sense that you better finish, right? Because there was no masters in between at the time. And yeah, that was a process and a journey in of itself. Yeah, but I went from bachelor's to PhD in physics, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the teaching assistants where you came back. Well, you were supposed to originally come back to Belize, but then you ended up staying.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did that end up working out?
So once again, like I said, I was already ready to go home the following day. I had to go home the following day because, visa expire. So I have to exit the country, but I have my documents in hand, right? And once more, I'm going back now. My mom doesn't know I'm coming back. I have another scholarship, and I have to tell her I have another scholarship, and I'm coming back, right? And so my mom was like, son, I mean, it's an opportunity. You earned it. They don't give away these things. It's a blessing, right? And so I came back. So the way how the teaching assistantship works is that so you're given a stipend, a yearly stipend, and you have to figure out how to live with that, right? Your rent, phone bill, etc., etc. In those days, it covered your tuition was covered. You had to purchase your own international insurance. As you know, the only thing that says that if you die, they'll send you home, right? They don't really cover much, but you have to have it in order
Right.
to be able to register. And so while I'm going to school, I'm actually teaching, right? So all of my teaching experience, they've all been at the university level. So my first class, I remember my first class, I'll never forget. This was now in 1989. Yeah, so I'm 21, right? Teaching my first university class, and it was an evening class, right? So what was interesting was that I was teaching physics to med students, pre-med, sports therapy type students, right? And so that means that everybody is older than I am, and probably have kids older than I am, right?
Oh.
So I remember my first day, people who know me know that, I move around with my knapsack, right? And I'm walking to the door and I pull out my keys, and then you can hear the whispering. Oh, yeah, I guess that's our teacher, right? Yeah, so that was my first official teaching experience at the university level. And it continued from there. So the first part of that is a teaching assistantship for a few years until you've completed your courses, you take the qualifying exam, pass the qualifying exams, right? And then you transition to the research aspect. And so you transition from teaching assistant to research assistant, which, you at that time you get an additional $1,000 to $2,000 more, and you're teaching, you're doing research then. But I was also teaching on the side at a technical college. I used to teach introductory physics 1 and 2 for them as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to highlight you were teaching while also still being in school. Yeah, that must be hard to juggle the two.
yeah. It was challenging. As a matter of fact, because I wanted to finish within a particular time, the first time I ever did summer class was when I got to graduate school, right? So I have no experience about summer school and how fast it goes, right? And I only did this once because I never did it again, right? I signed up for 3 graduate level courses during the summer.
Oh.
That was no joke.
Yeah.
That was no joke. I think that's when my insomnia started, and I probably still haven't recovered as yet. Yeah, that was intense, right? Because I think I did like 2 mathematical physics course and a statistical mechanics course, which was not advisable to do. Yeah. So I only did that foolishness one time.
But it did pay off. It did pay off.
Yeah,
in the end.
I mean, I didn't sleep, but
Yeah.
yeah, it paid off.
Yeah. And then now you get your PhD, and then you did your dissertation. Tell me again what the dissertation was.
So this was on solid frozen hydrogen deuteron targets.
I tell you what that mean.
That were polarized and transportable, right? All right. So these were the days when physicists, they were exploring the Higgs boson. So the Higgs boson is responsible for that sense of mass that a particle gets, right? I'm trying to explain this as vanilla as possible, right? Now, my research was done at Syracuse University, but remember now, I attend University of South Carolina.
Right.
So University of South Carolina and Syracuse wrote a joint proposal to the Department of Defense. It got funded. The problem is that the equipments are at Syracuse University. So now somebody from University of South Carolina has to move to go and represent. Right? I had some challenges at South Carolina that were racial in flavor, shall we say. And I realized that if I stayed there, I probably would have been there forever, or I probably wouldn't have finished, right? Because I had difficulty having somebody declare that they're going to be my advisor.
Oh, okay.
So I raised my hand, volunteered, rented a U-Haul, packed that, and roll, right? I got to Syracuse and I had the best experience ever. Yes, I had to start over my research project. I got to Syracuse 94, so I was there from 94 to 99, right? One of the best part of that is that I met Miss Karen, right? Yeah, I had to start over a new project. When you are a graduate student, let me put it like this: when you are a graduate student in physics, and it happens in chemistry that I'm aware of, at that level you're working on international projects, right? And so for example, we had a team in France, right? There was a team at Brookhaven National Lab. The one at Brookhaven National Lab was the laser team. So they had to actually create the instrumentation and all of that, right? And the experiment would be done there. But the target for that experiment has to be created at Syracuse University, right? And when I say created, it is an idea that has to be made into a reality, right? So it's not like somebody had done it before, right? And so that's one of the things about pursuing a PhD. You have to work on something new and innovative, right? It's not something that somebody had done before, right? And so we were tasked with figuring out how to create the target with all the specification that is required at Brookhaven National Lab. And as with international collaboration, concurrently, the folks in France, they were trying to mirror the same type of experiment, for accuracy reasons and what have you. So as a matter of fact, our team from Syracuse, we traveled to France and we were there for 2 weeks at the Nuclear Physics Institute in Orsay, France, doing the full setting up, running tests, training, and all of that, right? Yeah, the research at Syracuse was interesting because before, my advisor there was Dr. Arnold Honig. He passed away. Brilliant guy. Before you enter his lab, you have to spend a week in laser CFT training. You spend 3 weeks in radioactive material handling. Then you have to go to the electronic lab. Then you have to go to the machine shop, right? Then you have to go and learn how to fix pumps. And then you enter the lab, right? And the reason for that was that, remember, our targets, they're made of hydrogen. Very explosive. As a matter of fact, our lab was in the sub-basement. You hear what I say, right? You have the first floor, you have the basement, and then you have the sub-basement. So we were under the basement for good reasons.
Yeah.
Right? And we were working with a dilution refrigerator. So a dilution refrigerator takes you close to 0 kelvins, right? Real cold. So we're working with liquid nitrogen, liquid helium, and what have you, right? And so at those temperatures, for example, you just can't stick any old thermometer down there, right? So to measure temperature, we would use our radioactive material, right? Because the activity of the radioactive material is going to slow down the colder it becomes, right? So we use that as a thermometer, right? The electrical wires to sense the development of our targets and stuff like that. I mean, we have to make those every time we make a run, right? And so every time you run an experiment, right? We would say every time we cook, right? It's 50 days. Whether or not it works. Right? And again, you have to rely on your pumps. If your pumps they go bad, Dr. Honig is not gonna let you call some technician or whatever. You gotta figure out how to bring it back up. Let it hum again, as he would say. Right? And so we had to do those trainings so that you can function. You can function in the lab, right? That was a rich experience, right? Because at that time, automation was just coming on stream, right? So for you to sit behind a computer and control your equipment, that was new and exciting, right? And I mean, we were tinkering with these things, firsthand. The experience was really, really, really rich, really rich. Yeah.
So we talked a bit about some of the challenges that you may have faced, but what were some of the highlights of your time working on your PhD?
I mean, you're working at the frontier of knowledge, I call it. That is always exciting, right? Because you have your own ideas as to what you want to do or how things are going to evolve. It may not, but I'm a red-blooded mathematician, and we know that failure, all right, just means that you start over again and you wheel and come again, right? So that's a part of being a scientist. But then when you discover something new, or you learn to do something better or efficiently, right? In our case, this was around that time where you started integrating the use of computers into your analysis process, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's use the example of we're making a thermometer. We need to put it in a dilution refrigerator, right? So we would use a resistor, dip it in liquid nitrogen, which is at 77 kelvins. Take the resistance, dip it at liquid helium temperature, which is about 4 kelvins, right? If you pump on liquid helium, so when I say pumping, it's synonymous to your food hot, but you're hungry. What do? You blow, right? And when you blow, your stuff gets cooler. Yes. Right. So if you pump on liquid helium, the temperature goes down some more, right? So now you have these data points, right? And so you already know that if you're using a ruthenium oxide resistor, it has a particular temperature profile. So you take these 3 data points that you know for sure, right? And then you fit your curve to that. And once you have that curve, when you get a resistor reading, you go back to your curve and say, okay, so now we are at 5 kelvins going down, etc., etc. Right? So this was exciting stuff at the time, right? That today it's so routine that people take it for granted, right? Because I can tell you that I was at Syracuse when the internet transitioned from text to graphics, right? That whole interface just changed and revolutionized things, right? So it was a very exciting time, and getting to learn new things at that level, doing low temperature physics, some nuclear physics. I mean, yeah, it was fascinating, but I think it's because I was understanding what I was doing. You understand?
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't just following people around, right? There is a room in the sub-basement. As soon as you come out the elevator, the first room in the sub-basement, we used to call that the war room. Dr. Honig was different, all right? I remember the first day I got to Syracuse and I went looking for him at the office. He had this big laugh, this big laughter. And I remember I went to the secretary and asked about him, right? And she said, do you hear that laughter? Just follow it. Right? And I got to his office, stacked with books, physics books. Right? And so I said, Dr. Honig? He said, yes. I said, I'm Aaron Lewis. He said, call me Arnie. He was strictly first name. Strictly first name, right? So he created this war room. And every Monday, we enter that room, right? And he has these grandiose ideas, and we have ours too. And we were. I mean, he allowed us to say what we think and feel, and right? And I mean, in the end, I realized how much he was teaching us and training us, right? To the point that we would be in the lab 3 o'clock in the morning, and you probably have 12 inches of snow above us. And there were times like we would get lost. We tried everything, right? And we know we could call Arnie anytime of the day or night, right? And we would call him and say, my colleague at the time was Wei. He was from Beijing, much older than I am. And we would call Arnie and say, we try all this. Guys, just do bam, bam, bam. And we go back and do bam, bam, bam. And things start to work, right? Right. But he was the ideal teacher, right? I'll never forget the war room. Never.
Yeah.
Right. That's maybe the first time I came across, somebody of that stature who was willing to hear you on that level, and there weren't any hard feelings. And well, now that we know that was how he developed us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it must be a blessing to have somebody like that who nurtures your ideas.
Yeah.
So, as someone with such an extensive and impressive educational background, you would normally expect that they would remain abroad or, further their professional careers outside of Belize. But what was it that made you want to return home?
I'm Belizean to the bone, Grigalesian to the bone. I will tell you something that will probably throw you off guard. So every year, except for 1 year, every year that I was in the US studying, I would go home once a year, and this was around Christmas time, right? Because I have my teaching assistantship, my research assistantship. I can't go home in the summer.
Right.
I have to work, what have you. And so I go home Christmas, right? And there was this one Christmas I went home, and so I would catch the bus with my local Grigalesian and enjoy that trip to Griga, right? Usual thing, you know, the bus driver playing slow jam in the bus. Except there was this one time where it was different, right? I got on the bus, and then I'm listening to Garifuna music, right? On the radio for like over an hour, right? And so I asked, now which station is? They said it's a Crim, man. I said, Crim. Now that might seem small to a lot of people, but you have to remember when I left Griga to come to study, they only played Garifuna music or anything Garifuna on Radio Belize for half an hour. Right? And so for me, somebody else feeling invested in that, that was part of my me telling myself I have to come back and give back as well. Right? So for a long time I thought in my mind that I was going to give Belize first option. Right? As a matter of fact, I could take you to Dangriga right now and show you my notes for my courses. I could show you them. Right? But even after I went back to University of South Carolina, I defended. It was another ordeal. It took 4 hours. Got through it. So I'm still weighing my options, right? I had some postdoc coming my way. Right? I did an interview at Stony Brook. And then I heard that about this new thing, University of Belize is about to form. So that sounds exciting, right? And then there was an opening. I said, well, let me apply. And I was in New York at the time. I interviewed remotely with University of Belize. And then I got a rejection letter, right? And I told my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, I said, I'm going home, right? And so everybody was stunned, right? They said, you still, yeah, I'm going home. I said, because these people, they don't know how to process my credentials properly.
Yeah.
Right? That rejection letter from UCB transitioning to UB, I made up my mind I was going home. Right? And it was the perfect time in the sense that the government of Belize, I think it was the PUP at the time, they started a new program called the Belizeans Business Professorship Program. So this program was designed to attract Belizean PhDs back to Belize. But nobody took the chance, right? Then I come around, right? And I say, well, I'm going to take that chance though. So I was the first one that signed up for that, right? And then they funneled me right back to UB, right? Um, and my first semester, I taught 8 courses at UB, right? And they didn't need me. Now, I am somebody, I always believed in UB, right? Because by that time in my development, in my career, I clearly understood the value of a national university and the fact that the country was preparing itself to make that transition, right? To go from sixth form, junior colleges to, fully fledged hardcore university was very exciting to me, and I felt that I could have contributed, right? The other side of it, for me, that was personal. My ulterior motive was to go back to Belize and convince Belizean people that they're really, really smart, that they're highly intelligent, right? Because even as a child, right, I never subscribed to other cultures or races or whatever being smarter than us or better than us, right? I also believe in Belizean,
Right.
right? And Belizean intelligence, right? I believed in that, right? Maybe it was because of the period that I grew up in Griga, right? I mean, for example, on my way to primary school, I would pass Pen Cayetano's house, right? Well-known Belizean artist, right? I could tell you when Puntarak began with Turtle Shell Band at Pen Cayetano's house. I'm seeing all this creativity, right? You had guys from Ecumenical who had graduated before me who were pursuing um, their physics degree, the Gordon guys, right? PhD. Arlie Peters, Dr. Peters started Ecumenical. He didn't finish. He transitioned to the US and became a physicist. You had Dr. Aranda around, right? So I'm seeing all these creative spirits, right? And I felt that, yeah, I could do that too, right? And then you had my neighbors, the Joseph guys, who gave me the name Dr. A in high school well before. So I said, I have to go chase it. Yeah. And make this thing real, right? Yeah, yeah.
So you started off as a teacher at UB and you eventually worked your way up to dean. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so I was at UB for 19 years. Um, you know how it is. After the first year, people still surprised that I'm there, right? Because they think that I'm just there for a stint and I'm going to leave. But I already made a commitment. UB was serious business, right? So very quickly I became the dean. So I became the dean for the faculty. What was the Faculty of Arts and Science, right? And then shortly after that, UB went through a process of many processes, and there was what was referred to as restructuring in UB's history, right? And so restructuring the faculty, they got recombined, if you will. So arts and science, of which I was the dean, that got broken up. Arts was sent over to education, which is how faculty education and arts came about. And then science part now started to grow significantly, right? So I'm stuck with the maths, chemistry, physics, biology, natural resource management, um, marine science, Calabash Key got attached to that. Engineering got attached to that. IT got attached to that. All of Central Farm, all the science and math related courses in Punta Gorda, along with Hunting Key. So all of that became Faculty of Science and Technology. So I was the first dean for the Faculty of Science and Technology.
Season 2 of the Captain 501 broadcast is brought to you by the National Institute of Culture and History, NICH. NICH is Belize's premier cultural institution dedicated to empowering contemporary and traditional creatives, nurturing their talents, and recognizing their roles as catalysts for change in our communities, safeguarding both our tangible and intangible heritage. The NICH vision to create a Belize that embraces and promotes our cultures, our values, our identity, our prosperity in our global community is brought to life through a diverse array of programs and initiatives. You can learn more about the resources provided by NICH by visiting the Museum of Belize or the Museum of Belizean Art located in Belize City, the various houses of cultures located countrywide, as well as visiting nichbelize.org or other websites and tools such as the 501 Academy and Access 501. So tell us a bit more about how the Faculty of Science and Technology came to be.
Yeah, so I believe it was 2003. I became the dean for what was then the Faculty of Arts and Science. And then shortly after that, UB underwent restructuring, and various faculty got combined or broken up, depending on the case, what the case may be. And so arts and science, the arts part was combined with education, which became Faculty of Education and Arts. Science now grew, right? So the usual maths, physics, biology, chemistry, marine science, natural resource management, engineering got added on, IT got added on, all the science related courses that were in Belmopan got added on. The Research Center at Calabash Key that got added on. Central Farm got added on. All the science and math courses in PG got added on, along with Hunting Key. All of that became Faculty of Science and Technology. And I became the first dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology, and was in charge of developing that whole faculty. There was a point where our faculty had the most complement of PhDs in the university, and we started to transition to where our faculty would at least have a master's degree, and those that had bachelor's degree, we made attempts to have them upgrade. It was a exciting time for students, because the experience became richer in terms of the projects they were doing. During summertime, they were doing actual research. We had things like biopropagation going on. Students growing plants in test tubes. A lot of exciting in the research center at the at Calabash Key. Our students would take field trips out there, and they had their own scuba club. Yeah, it was a vibrant time within the Faculty of Science and Technology and within the university as a whole, right? We, for example, the faculty was responsible for setting up the learning management system. We were the first to set up Moodle, right? Um, there was a moment I was the provost for like a 6 month, 8 months period while still being the dean. um, um, we were the first to set up a electronic library system. For example, the Faculty of Science and Technology were the first to do a GIS workshop in Belize, right? In collaboration with the Gators. The Gators are what? University of Florida, South Florida. I can't remember right now. Yeah, there were a lot of there was an exciting experience for our science students, right? You know, we had the Earth Day, the first Earth Day fair on campus. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
You taught 8 classes, right?
My first semester, yeah.
Were they all science related classes?
That first semester, there were chemistry
Mhm.
courses, mathematics courses, physics courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So well, in my opinion, I feel like the science courses are the ones that many students tend to shy away from because they may think that it's a bit too hard or too challenging.
Yeah, typically for students, it would be the math courses and the physics courses
Yeah. So
that they claim
mhm.
is challenging.
Are too
Go
hard.
ahead, go
Uh-huh.
ahead. Of course, I'm
So
going to say that.
so
Yeah.
then as a teacher, what's your approach to helping the students learn, to helping them understand when it comes to whatever subject it may be?
All right. So I've been teaching courses to business students and science students, right? For the business students, the challenging courses would be, the business stats one, business stats two, business calculus, um, quantitative methods, finite math. I think I'm remembering all of them. um,
For me, that's accounting.
okay. For the math majors, the bachelor's math majors, it would be complex analysis is definitely one of them. Ordinary differential equations. There were a few of us at UB at the time who could teach all of those mathematics courses solidly. Dr. Leopold Perriott is one of them. I mean, I never had the good fortune of being one of his students, but I've had the good fortune of working with him, right? Because when I became dean, I went for him at his house, and he taught for us for a while. And when I was the chair of the Statistical Institute of Belize, I went for him again, right? Um, in my view, in my humble opinion, Dr. Perrott is a mathematical genius. I have ultimate respect for Dr. Perrott. Yeah. So these students, they typically come to you with some innate fear, right? Because, they hear sorts of horror stories about mathematics. Um, but if you learn at Aaron Lewis and you're an English major and you say you want to take a physics course, I'm down.
You like the challenge?
As a matter of fact, it happened already. It happened once. You had a student who was in education and wanted to enter my modern physics course, right? And yeah. So I I think that I can teach to anybody, right? Now, I will tell you that during my time at ecumenical and technical college, all the way to my bachelor's degree at South Carolina State, most of my teachers were women, right? Their style um, was demanding but nurturing, right? Um, and then everybody know that we come across a couple teachers from hell. Let's be honest, right? And so I've learned from all of my teachers what to do and what not to do, right? And I try to personalize that, right? So when you enter my class, in my mind, I say to myself, welcome to the Aaron Lewis experience, right? My students will tell you that I tell them I'm not interested in memorization. If that is your intention, this is the wrong class for you, right? I'm interested in you understanding. And the reason for that is because I need you to be able to apply yourself. Because Aaron Lewis will not always be around, right?
Yeah.
And whether you pass or you fail, they will still ask you who they your teacher. And you will still say Aaron Lewis. All right? So I try to make my courses engaging, right? Now, of course, I'm a little oldish, right? So I could stand in front of a class and start to teach, create problems on the fly. And one of the reasons why I do that is to give the students the experience on the spot. That you and I we're seeing this problem together for the first time, and we're gonna work it together for the first time. That takes me back again to the war room. Right? Takes me back to the war room. So all of these experiences, I try to bring it back to my teaching. When it comes to mathematics, the advantage that I always have over somebody that only have a mathematics degree is my physics background, right? So in other words, I've solved a lot of application type problems in different genres or arena or subjects, right? So if I'm teaching business calculus, right, all of my problems, examples, and stuff are going to be business related, right? And I will personalize it to say, well, listen, this store called Yabra Electronics, so and so and so, right? Make it relatable to them, right? And I'll go over and teach Calculus 3, and it's going to be math-related problems, right? And I would tell my students, I say, you come here, you may think that you're coming here just for your bachelor's degree, but I'm actually preparing you for your master's degree, right? So, for example, a course like complex analysis, I always sneak in master's level content that I learned into it, because by that time they're able to handle it, right? And usually at the end of the semester, I will tell them, listen, I did this and I also did this, right? And you will see the benefit when you graduate from here and you move on, right? I'm a bit unconventional because I was never the type that believed in the restriction of time. Because over a period of time, I realized that a lot of students fail simply because they couldn't complete a calculation within a time, which is different from they didn't know how to do it.
Right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that aspect of me emanate from me and my dyslexic self. It's fine. It's not a problem. It doesn't mean I don't know how to solve the problem. It might take a little longer. So, if you meet any of my students, they will tell you about their final exam experience. The exam is set for probably 2 hours, but some of them are there 3 hours later, maybe 4 hours later. Right? When they finish, when they give up, they bring it to me, right? They would have collaboration time, right? Maybe in a test or an exam, right? So what I would do is probably halfway through exam, I tell everybody go outside. Give them time to stretch and rethink. Right? They will go outside. They can't have paper. They can't have pen. They can't have pencil. I say, but you can discuss, right? Give them exact 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Go back inside, right? So I was unconventional in that sense. The other thing is that I always feel that a university is supposed to be forward thinking. So there was a time a couple of times I was given one of the bachelor's mathematics course called special topic. Now special topics is supposed to teach whatever is special topic, right? And there was a time I was teaching students how to create instructional videos, mathematics instructional videos, right? And it emanated from the fact that I had stopped my students from doing mathematics presentation using PowerPoint. Because the problem is PowerPoint is static, right? So if we're doing addition, right, whatever I put on the PowerPoint, that is what is there. So whatever students say, it's supposed to change that to 50. What, right? You physically have to go and change that. So I required my students to use either Mathematica or Maple, which are mathematics softwares, right? So now all of a sudden you're given your same mathematics presentation, but your presentation is interactive, right? So if a student say, okay, can we now multiply by 100? You change the original 3 to 100, and your answer is right there on the fly. Right? Now, this started well before COVID. Right? So I'm confident none of my prior students, had problems creating instructional videos during COVID. They already had that experience, right? In a rich, significant way.
So with your teaching style, it's not necessarily conventional, but you know for a fact, you have the confidence that your students are gaining the knowledge.
Yeah, listen, my students know that all homework, they're mandatory. I grade everything, right? The first week is always interesting, right? Because I don't know what were their experiences before, but when they get to me, I literally grade everything. I literally go through the calculation, right? And give them feedback. Whatever assignment I give them, whatever tests I give them, I always give them back my solution, right? So that come exam day, I always tell them exam day is show off day, right? So come exam day, they can't tell me that they saw any problem with me and they don't know how to work the problem. Because I give them the solution to the problem, right? And and they know that my homework, they're mandatory. At the end of the day, it's mathematics we're talking about, right? The practice is crucial.
Yeah.
That confidence that a student need to have to attack a new problem that he or she is seeing, I need that by final exam day. I need them to have that. All right. And so I prepare them accordingly. Yeah, they would say that I'm hard on them. That's fine. That's a part of the experience. But I also teach them tricks of the trade along the way, right? At the beginning of the semester, I would tell them something like, well, I'm going to teach you how to let a formula speak to you. Of course, that's a strange statement at the end of the semester. But by the time we get halfway through, they're able to look at our integration and do some initial assessment in their mind. And in some cases, they could write the answer right away without having to go through the detailed calculation process, right? But it takes a lot of work and preparation on my part to get them to that point, right? But for me, once I get them to that point, now I can elevate the level of problems that I give to them now.
Right.
I can give them harder problems, right? I can now step into that master's level stuff without they knowing it, and they're able to handle themselves, right? That is my personal reward at the end, right? Because if I can get them to that point, then I know that our journey was successful. And they will tell you that, they were up all night as group working, trying to solve problems, whatever. It's all part of the excitement.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing with my physics majors, right? Typically, let's take the physics curriculum in Belize. It's typically tailored from CXC curriculum. CXC curriculum changes very slowly over the years, right? So, but at UB, if you're doing modern physics, for example, I put in particle physics a long time ago into that curriculum, right? So my students, they would get a rich particle physics introduction in modern physics that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else, right? And with those students in particular, I try to draw lessons about life from the physics, which would be unexpected to them, right? And then you be started having science fairs, right? And I try to identify strategic things for them to present during science fair that would be different, right? And by the time science fair comes around, they can handle themselves, right? So we do things like, people seeing their shadow in colors for the first time. Now when you see a shadow, it's dark, it's gray, whatever. Now you're able to see it in, in yellow and purple and blue, and right? We used to make ice cream using liquid nitrogen, which is very, very cool. Those type of things, right? Yeah. Listen, from a personal standpoint, UB didn't really work out for me personally, but my students, I believe they got the benefit of my contribution to their development, and I could deal with that. Yeah.
Before we close off, I want to ask you, who do you consider some of your inspirations?
My biggest inspiration has to be my mother. As a single mother, um, raising not just me, but my cousins. There was a time when there were like 10 of us in the house. It still fascinates me up to today how when we go on vacation, everybody goes on vacation, right? Because I only have two, I feel like a struggle sometimes, right? So I I watched my mother over the years, being strong, independent, resilient, motivational to others. Um, and I have tremendous respect for her, for being committed to my welfare, right? Because there was a period when I was living with my grandmother, and my mom was abroad working to support her husband, and then I started to give trouble, and my mother returned home and straightened me out, right? My grandmother was also motivational because she was a very strong-minded woman, strong-willed woman, and very creative. So these two people were my foundation that became permanent, right? Now that I'm a father, there are several people around my neighborhood that I'm talking about male figures now that showed interest in my development, that I copy certain things, emulate certain things from them, because I saw and studied how they were as fathers, right? And I borrow some stuff and style from them and adapt my own. Dangriga on a whole, I found inspirational then, and I still find Griga inspirational now, right? So I know that you would hear these talk about how the culture is dying, the language is dying, but young people are still creating new stuff. And I think that culture is supposed to evolve. So I find Dangriga to be still to be inspirational, right? My entire neighborhood was supportive of my upbringing, right? Because me traveling in any direction in my neighborhood, I could be put in check by anybody. Right? Any direction, right? So there was a time after I returned home to work at UB, one of my conversations I had with my mother, and I asked her, how was it that she was willing to let me go? Because as you had asked earlier, transitioning from Dangriga to Belize City was different from transitioning from Griga to the US.
Right.
And my mom told me simply, she said, "Son, I trusted the way that I raised you." And that said it all. Right? So I was able to handle myself for the most part. Yeah.
What advice would you have for the students or the future leaders of today?
Yeah. The journey is long. It's difficult. It's challenging. But you have to figure it out, right? So there was a period of time where, as with every young male, you yearn to have your father around, and there was a period of time when I realized, for me, that wasn't going to happen. And so you then have to decide whether or not you're going to be a perpetual victim, right? In my mind, for me, if I was going to be that, then that is something I'm putting now on myself, right? And I decided that I wasn't going to let something or some responsibility that somebody else wasn't taking on become part of my limitation then, right? And so you have to figure out how to pivot, how to change gear, how to steer your course, right? And then you remember those who have been there for you and who are willing to be there for you. And that is where the game starts to change, right? Because if you subscribe to victimhood, then you wallow in that, right? I have a little bit of self-confidence and sense that I got from my mother and my grandmother that I carry on with me every day, right? Everybody needs to have that or find it from someone who cares about them, right? And so it's important that you're able to identify that, right? Because in my case, when I came to the US and now I was on my own, I still have to figure out how to take care of Miss Julie child, Miss Julie only child, right? Which means I have to be selective as to who I'm going to hang out with, who I'm going to be around. You have to remember these things, right? Your big goals take time. You have to go through that time, right? You know how it is when you're studying, you go back home, you meet your friend, you still study, you're not tired of studying. If that's a part of what you need to do, you have to do it. Because trust me, if there were any shortcuts, I would let you know. That's for sure. I know I waste your time. Right? You know, as a physicist, I have a deep understanding of time. Right? I know that our experience of time is finite. Right? So for me, you really shouldn't squander time. Right? And when people say, "I will make up the time to you," it's not possible. Right? So that deep sense of yourself is very important. Leaning back to how you were brought up is very important, because every now and again you have to lean back on those things, right? You may need it to reset, right? To bring you back, right? To remember, who you are, right? My grandmother used to always tell us this: life hard, but it's sweet. And as a child, she said, "Granny, that song ridiculous." But as an adult, I totally understand what it means. Right? So yeah.
And lastly, before we let you go, let us know what's next for Dr. Lewis. Where can we keep up with you?
Well, I'm not on Facebook. You'll probably find me on LinkedIn or email. If you really need to find me, somebody in Belize know me. As far as now, I'm a lot into the integration of AI and science and mathematics. I've always had this fascination with languages, right? So one of the things I've been working on, for example, on the side, is to develop a program that will translate Garifuna into English and Belize Creole. I'm basically more into the mathematics and everything then, right? Because now that computers are more powerful, AI is integrating. Eventually, courses and subjects are going to become interrelated, and education will have to change in that direction, right? When I was growing up doing physics, right, you do the traditional thing, physics and math. By the time I got to sixth form, you had to add chemistry, right? Because, synthetic materials started to come as part of manufacturing and what have you, right? By the time I got to university, you had to add in computer science, right? So things evolve, right? And it's important that we, the people, evolve along with it, and that our government leaders, they are aware of it, but not only aware of it, that they are willing to invest in it, right? And finally invest in UB once and for all.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that brings us to the end of our episode. A very special thank you to Dr. Lewis for making his way onto the Captain 501 broadcast. And a special thank you to you guys as well for watching. If you guys want more episodes, check us out. YouTube for the videos, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify for the audio portions. And we will definitely see you guys in the next episode.